Alright. We're taking all the best old school wisdom and blending it with the top new school methods to bring you the optimal coaching strategies. This is the 80-20 Baseball Podcast with Coach Bo.
Welcome, coaches, parents, some players. Welcome, 80-20 Baseball community. So, coaches, I got to thinking after last week's episode, part 2 of the interview with Coach Pyrus. Actually, I should say after both parts of that interview, it got me thinking about working with assistant coaches or even working with private coaches if you're a parent and you have a hitting coach that your kid goes to or kids go to, or a pitching coach or a catching coach. And definitely if you're, like a lot of you, managers, coaches of a team, of a youth baseball team, it got me thinking about using the same terminology. And I think this should be a very high priority. We've hit on this a little in the past, but maybe not enough. So Coach Pyrus, over the last couple weeks on this podcast, shared some strategies that he uses to be efficient and effective working in concert with the assistant coaches, working with his team of coaches. He discussed some strategies to help find time to talk as a coaching staff without taking away from the practice time, or at least taking a minimal amount of time away from practice and not having to all get on the phone at 9 p.m. at night or during the middle of the day when everybody's working. And something we must always keep in mind as a priority, as a key priority, is using similar terminology. And for obvious reasons, it reduces the complexity, the confusion, it simplifies the message in terms of vocabulary, in terms of the words being used. So let's work hard as coaches to not just craft an effective message when we coach up our teams, when we coach up our kids, when we coach up our players, whether that's building the team culture, building their swing, their hitting approach, how they're going about pitching, their infield skills, relays and cutoffs, how we expect them to run the bases, how we expect them to play the outfield, what we want out of our catcher. It's important that we're all on the same page in the dictionary. We're all on the same page and line in terms of using similar vocabulary and a similar message. It needs to be a cohesive message. But if that message is coming across with different words, different verbs, we're calling the same thing different things, or explaining it different ways, this can very much stunt and slow down the growth of our team, our players. So keep this top of mind. Keep this top of mind when coaching. Now with players and kids, I should say parents that have kids and players getting one-on-one or small group instruction, private instruction from somebody in the area that might not be the coach or the manager of the Little League team or the Pony League team or the travel ball team, I think it's worthwhile to listen to the message that that instructor is giving, the words and the way they say it. So that message can then be used moving forward when the player's in a different environment than those lessons. A couple examples of this. When coaching pitchers, I use the term power slide step. You can go over to the website. I have 2 videos over there that break down the power slide step. This is for pitchers that are pitching at a level where base runners can steal when the pitcher starts their delivery. I would call it the power slide step. I would not say an abbreviated slide step, a quick pitch, or being fast to the plate, or being quick to the plate but not too quick. Be efficient to the plate. There's a lot of ways we can say or describe what we want that player or the pitchers to do. So I would tell the assistant coaches, we're going to call it the power slide step. So when we refer to being efficient to the plate or faster to the plate or doing a better job of holding runners, we're going to refer to that as the power slide step. Another example is the hitting plan or hitting approach. I would stick to one. I would call it the hitting plan or hitting approach. I wouldn't bounce back and forth. I know this message might come across as inconsequential or not that important, but I really think it's worth the time on some of these key or definitely the big needle movers to try to use similar terminology. I've seen youth coaches do a great job of using youth type of terminology. They name it something after an animal or after a superhero. They name it something that sticks, something that the players can remember. That's one way to do it. My recommendation for that is to use that for the 6U, 7U, 8 and under, maybe 9 and under, but 6 and 7, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. That's cool. I think when they get a little bit older, I would caution against naming your coaching pointers after zoo animals, but I like the idea to get it to stick. I think it should be a simple message: power slide step. Pretty simple. Almost every kid up to a certain level will, at least once they're at the level where they can, or they are holding runners, trying to slow down the running game, they know what a slide step is. Probably 80-90% of the pitchers at that level know what a slide step is, and I just add the word power in front of it: power slide step. So in other words, it conveys the message too of what we're trying to get out of it. We're trying to be quick. Slide step is synonymous with being faster to the plate. And power, meaning we don't want to just go fast just to hold the runner and then not have a quality pitch. We want to be a good pitcher. We want to have some power behind it with our legs, our lower half. We need to use the legs and lower half, so we need some power from our legs. Not necessarily to throw harder, but to also ease up the stress on the arm, which, speaking of which, I'm going to deviate a little here. I was watching a video behind the scenes with Walker Buehler coming back. He's a Dodgers pitcher, throws pretty hard, but a little smaller in stature. He throws really hard, and he's coming back from Tommy John surgery. He had his UCL, ulnar collateral ligament, replaced, the common surgery, as most of you know. And he's coming back, and he's supposed to be coming back soon. And I saw Shohei Ohtani saying he's going to have Tommy John surgery again. Jake DeGrom. I think something that can help pitchers be less susceptible to injuries. I think one of the best things we can do as a youth baseball coach, a youth manager, working with youth pitchers, one of the best things we can do is focusing on getting pitchers to use their legs and lower half, their hips, the weight around their midsection, using those parts of the body a lot more than relying only on the arm. Those videos on 8020baseball.com show that, where it's leg lift and then hip lead. And the hip lead is really what it's trying to do, is get the body weight and the lower half to get involved, or to be involved more, so it puts less stress on the arm. Not only that, there's some timing issues that it solves and helps. So pitch count, I think for lower levels is great. Mechanics in terms of arm action, important stuff. But I think the number one thing we could start doing better is really going back to trying to get the lower half involved, let the lower half lead, relying more on our lower half's power, the legs, the midsection, center of gravity kind of down, utilizing that more to generate the power from the pitch. And it doesn't necessarily mean high velocity. So that thought came to mind as I saw DeGrom and Ohtani and Buehler and their arm injuries. And I know they're pro players, but those are players that we can all relate to. Those are players we can all see on TV and see online. It made me think of that message I wanted to share with all of you, and that is, let's really try to get pitchers to use their lower half better. Now, I highly recommend getting some more strength in the lower half. That doesn't mean deadlifts and squats for kids, but they should be doing some body weight stuff, some basic yoga, some basic balancing, some basic lunges with some twists. I think we need to get their lower half a little more mobile. For the most part, a lot of pitchers, even youth pitchers, need to be a little more mobile with their lower half. Doesn't mean fast, like they can run a sprint really fast, but I mean mobile. Can they do a full lunge and rotate their torso? Can they lift their knee up without sacrificing their posture? Can they pitch to the plate without sacrificing their posture? So I think definitely a strength component for youth players. It doesn't involve lifting weights or any of that, or throwing heavy balls or anything like that. Just simply things like lunges and knee lift holds and some simple yoga, working on balance and mobility for the lower half would be huge. And then when it comes to the delivery, I highly recommend trying to get that lower half involved more. Go back and look at video of Nolan Ryan. Go back and look at video of Mariano Rivera, Roger Clemens. Max Scherzer is a good one to watch nowadays. Verlander. These are all pitchers that have pitched a long time and been relatively healthy for how long they've pitched and had a lot of success. All right, now back to using the same terminology as coaches. I think this takes some thought. I think when there's some key messages, there might be 3 or 4 or 5 key things that you're coaching up in a season. Let's make sure that we're using the same terminology across the board with the coaches. As a manager, I would go to the assistants if you have assistants. If you don't, then you don't have to worry about this too much, except that you should use the same terminology yourself in a consistent manner. So it's not just being on the same page with other coaches, but also with ourselves. So we can simplify the message. If we simplify the message, and I'm going to hit on this in just a second with regard to a book that I'm about done with Tom Verducci's book titled The Book of Joe. I'm going to hit on that in just a second. But first, let's finish with this terminology. Using the same terminology, it doesn't need to be across the board like robots, but I would definitely get on those key items, maybe what you call certain things, hitting plan or hitting approach, slide step or power slide step, or something you want all your defenders to do, or something that you want your catchers to do, title it and use that same title throughout the season. You'll adjust how you coach it, the nuances, but at least keep that terminology the same so we can streamline the learning process, shorten that learning curve, because we're taking out unnecessary words, complexity. Kids don't need to figure out what we're talking about then to figure out how to do what we're talking about. We want them to know what we're talking about quickly so then they can do the hard part, which should be the hard part, and that is to implement it and to get better at that new skill or new habit or new thing. So I mentioned Joe Maddon, reading the book of Joe. Good book. So on the ride over this last weekend to Bend, Oregon. Bend, Oregon was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool place. Saw a great concert over there. And on that drive, it's about 10 and a half hours round trip. I had this Joe Maddon book that I've been waiting to read for a few months. So I popped it on, and my wife was doing some work in the car, and I got 3/4 of that book read or listened to, and a couple of things stood out. Here's something that really stood out. Joe Maddon says in his book that 97% of team meetings are a waste of time. 97%. Now, I don't know how he came up with that number, and of course, I'm sure he just threw it out there as a kind of a rough estimate of what he's feeling or what he thinks about team meetings. What he's saying is team meetings are by and large a waste of time. I agree with a lot of that. The premise of it, that team meetings are in a lot of ways a waste of time. I don't know if the amount of team meetings is the thing we need to focus on cutting back on, or the length of the team meeting, and also improving the message to our players, being concise, being clear, selling it to our players, why it's important, how it's going to benefit them, how it's going to benefit the team. Also clarifying the message of what we need to do, going back to using the same terminology and streamlining our message to them so they don't have to figure out what we're saying. They can figure out just how to do it. But what I gathered from Joe Maddon's statement and comments in the book about team meetings is that they're not that productive. Maybe there's too many team meetings. Players get better when they hear information, but they build their skills by and large, almost wholly by doing, by trying, by feeling it out, by going through those motions of building those better habits, those better skills by doing. And I think most everybody that's been with this podcast long enough, you know where I'm coming at with this. Too much talk, not enough action in our world today. We need more hands-on. We need more doing, less theory, less talking about it, less hypothesizing, more testing, more doing. So team meetings, for that sake, yeah, I don't think team meetings are that useful. They are helpful. You should have team meetings, of course, but I wouldn't default to just having them because you saw other coaches have one at this time, and that time during practice or whatnot. I think that you definitely should have team meetings. I think the focus should be not necessarily on how many team meetings you have, but first, how can we make that message more concise, more clear, better for the listener, our audience, the players, in terms of getting that information to go to them and then get transferred to their game. Joe Maddon says this quote many a times in the book. He's quoted saying, "Do simple better. Do simple better." So here's a guy who's been in the game of baseball for over 40 years, 45, 50 years in professional baseball. Here's a coach who used to keep his own handwritten spreadsheets and scouting reports and spray charts. He was doing this stuff in the 80s. He said he had a computer when baseball wasn't into computers. He had reams of paper that he traveled with because he had to print it out, all those reports. There weren't iPads and things, of course. So here's a coach who's got 40 plus years in professional baseball. There's probably not much he doesn't know or have a solid take on in the game of baseball. And yet, his motto, his message is do simple better. We coach youth baseball. We're coaching youth baseball. So here's a coach working with the most advanced levels, the most advanced players with terabytes of information, of experience. And he just keeps saying, do simple better. Youth coaches, let's do simple better. That's what the 80/20 Baseball podcast is all about. Mastering the key parts of youth baseball, of playing and coaching youth baseball, mastering the key parts. We also dive into the nuances and some of the peripheral and ancillary things. We do, but we're not doubling and tripling down on those things. We want to get better with the key things, and we want to simplify our message, our coaching message to our players. Do simple better. Part of that starts with using the same terminology. That simplifies things, but also the fundamentals. So Coach Maddon is talking about the fundamentals and also a simple message, a clear message, not just talking to talk. So I think it's very important that we buy into this approach. I really, truly think this is the path to optimizing our coaching, to being the best coaches we can be so our players benefit the most from what we bring out there. Reduce complexity with our words and also with our practice plans. Do simple better. Another thing Coach Madden said, don't regurgitate, be original. Don't regurgitate, be original. Or don't tell me what you heard, tell me what you think is another one he says. I think this is a good one. That's a lot of the premise of where I'm at and where I've come from and got into this kind of mission of, after so many years out on the field of playing and coaching, and I got into this mission of, hey, I got to take this to a wider audience. It all started with me questioning everything, but not to be contrarian. Now, if I couldn't find holes in it or I couldn't find things that were wrong with it, I let it be. I let it go, and I ran with that. Most of the time, I wasn't reinventing things wholly when I found things out there in the game or coaching or strategies, or when it comes to like teaching and working with kids. It really wasn't about building a whole new model, but it was about optimizing it, finding better ways to do it. Now, those can be massive gains. That can lead to 30, 40, 50% improvements, big improvements. But I was always, and I've always asked, is there a better way to do it? And also really paying attention to the coaches that have done it really well for a long time, and then focusing on the commonalities of those coaches. Essentially trying to run an effective study in observation, saying, all right, what are the consistent things that these coaches all do? And that will be much more likely to be an accurate, or I should say, a useful thing to use when we go out there and coach. One thing I see a lot of the great coaches doing is they're not old school and they're not new school. They're just trying to be the best school. And Joe Madden's one of those. There's a lot of merit to the new school approach on things. And there's also a lot of wisdom and merit to the old school approach. So let's not get too caught up in playing the numbers and being all analytical about it. Let's make sure that we keep it fun. And also, just because there's some new technique being taught or new method, let's question it. Let's ask. Let's see. And let's see if it's playing out with multiple teams, multiple players in a longitudinal way. So Joe Madden is all about new school stuff. He was into stats and shifts, and he was actually one of the first coaches to do shifts. Shifts have been around since Ted Williams was playing. There were shifts, and I know they outlawed them. But to kind of give you an idea, we want to be thinking for ourselves out there. We want to look to coach the best way possible, not just how other coaches we've seen are doing it. And that's really the foundation of this podcast. It's like the old BASF commercial. Most of you are old enough to remember that commercial. I don't know if it was playing in your area growing up on kind of the local TV, but that BASF commercial was on all the time. And their motto was, we don't make the products you buy, we make the products you buy better. We didn't come up and invent many of the things that are being coached, but we're just going to try to do them better and improve upon them. And also that makes coaching a lot more fun, a lot less mundane and boring. It's fun to come up with better ways, but don't just be contrarian or add complexity. You're not trying to build a circus out there. You're trying to coach baseball and coach young kids. So Joe Madden let Jake Arrieta, a pitcher that he had, finish a complete game shutout back in like 2015 when he was with the Cubs. He let him finish a complete game shutout with about 120 pitches. The score was 8-0. After the game, Joe's bosses were not happy at all that they left Jake Arrieta in. 120 pitches in 2015. That's a high number in today's game, even 8 years ago. And when leading 8-0, it wasn't a no-hitter. It wasn't a perfect game that Coach Madden was trying to let Jake Arrieta finish. But Coach Joe Madden had feel. He felt that was the particular game, a complete game shutout, was the ticket to possibly springboard Arrieta's career, which up to that point had not been very good. Not been very good at all. His ERA had been really terrible. He'd been let go, bounced around, traded, and he thought if he could get a complete game shutout under his belt, and the way he'd been kind of pitching up to that point, that could springboard him, and sure did. In fact, after that game, Arrieta went on to one of the most dominant extended runs of any pitcher in baseball history, if not the most dominant. There was like a 23 start or 25 start period where he was 22-1 with a .85 ERA, just incredible numbers. So as youth coaches, we can't always be by the book, but we also should be somewhat by the book. I'm a big fan of a lot of the new school and a lot of the old school, like Coach Madden. So when you go out to the field this next time to coach, start with the fundamentals, start with the things that we know are going to be important. Fielding ground balls, making accurate throws, hitting line drives, pitchers throwing strikes, and then build from there, Outfielders, good ready position. Infielders, good ready position, ready to go. Knowing where the plays are at. These are some key fundamentals. Then build from there. Don't just follow the rest of the flock in your area that's doing it a certain way. Don't be afraid to be different, but don't be different just to be different. So I wanted to share with you the tip on the terminologies, kind of dive into that a little bit more using the same terminology. And I want to share out the Joe Madden book that I read. It's a really good book, and I definitely would recommend coaches read that book. For one thing, it's baseball, but it's about leadership. It's about working with players. It's not just X's and O's. He talks about how to coach up all the Jimmies and Joes. Thanks for sticking with me as I bounced around a little on this episode, just trying to keep you on your toes, right? Like a baseball game. One team goes up, the other team goes up, or something happens. All of a sudden, there's a delay, some lightning. You got to stop. You got to get sheltered. Hey, you never know. You got to be ready as coaches. Hopefully, you weren't too surprised when I jumped around a little in this episode. I'll tell you what, the emails I'm getting, the direct messages I'm getting pumps me up. A lot of great feedback. Some great reviews being left. Thank you so much for that. And really, thank you all for being coaches. If you've listened to this podcast and you've bought into the 80-20 purpose and our plan and our mission and really what we're all about, then you are my type of coach, and you are the type of coach that the kids need, because it's a holistic approach, starting with mastering the key fundamentals, the key items. And as always, I'm going to be back next week, ready to go. I'm pumped up. And next week, I got top 5 coaching tweets of the month and a pregame tip that will help your team be better prepared when the games start. So next week, we have the top 5 coaching tweets of the month. Those are some gems. There's a lot of good wisdom out there that I curate, bring to you. I definitely give credit where it's due. And then we break it down so we can learn and then extrapolate and then implement that message into our coaching strategies right away. Also, I'll share a pregame tip that's going to help your team be better prepared when the game starts. All right. Please share the podcast. Send it out. Share it out, please. That's the best thing you can do to help support the podcast. Leave a quick rating or review is another great way. Those are just quick, easy, free ways that you can help support the podcast. Go over to 8020baseball.com. Get that free drill design guide. By getting the free drill design guide sent to you, you'll get access to that right away. Talks about the 8 parts, the 8 ingredients to creating a perfect drill. Not that we're always going to create perfect drills, but at least you'll know what you need to get there, and you'll get a lot closer by knowing those parts and knowing what the ingredients are. Also, you're not going to get spammed. I'm not going to send you emails. I've never sent an email, a follow-up email to anybody who's got that drill design guide, and there's been hundreds of coaches that have gone over to get that. But I will probably email you when the coaching course comes out and is ready in a few months, and it will come with a special price. I'm not sure if it's going to be a better price or a couple really awesome bonuses that I just finished building out, some templates. So not sure which way I'm going to go with it, but either way, you're going to get access to those things. So until next week, take care of yourself, take care of your families, your close friends, and take care of your players, your kids, your team like you already are. Now take it out there, take care of them, coach up the whole player, have fun, smile, keep it all in perspective. And until next week, adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.